Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ, King of endless glory. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ, King of endless glory. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. As Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, he took the 12 disciples aside by themselves and said to them on the way, "Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be handed over to the chief priests and the scribes, and they will condemn him to death, hand him over to the Gentiles to be mocked, and scourged, and crucified. And he will be raised on the third day." Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee approached Jesus with her sons and did him homage, wishing to ask him for something. He said to her, "What do you wish?" She answered him, "Command that these 2 sons of mine sit, one at your right and the other at your left in your kingdom." Jesus said in reply, "You do not know what you are asking. Can you drink the chalice that I am going to drink?" They said to him, "We can." He replied, "My chalice you will indeed drink, but to sit at my right and at my left, this is not mine to give, but is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father." When the 10 heard this, they became indignant at the 2 brothers. But Jesus summoned them and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and the great ones make their authority over them felt. But it shall not be so among you. Rather, whoever wishes to be great among you shall be your servant. Whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your slave. Just so, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." The Gospel of the Lord. The next couple days, we're going to be hearing from the prophet Jeremiah. The prophet Jeremiah is, if I remember correctly, it's the longest prophetic book of the Old Testament. It's very long. It's a really good story to read, even if you're new to the Bible. There's a really easy to follow narrative as well as some prophecies mixed in the prophet Jeremiah. Jeremiah is also an interesting prophet because Jeremiah is the quintessential suffering prophet of the Bible. Jeremiah's life was so difficult that God actually told him to never get married, because he was telling Jeremiah that there was going to be so much suffering in Israel in his age that it would be better for many not even to marry and have children. But especially for Jeremiah, because not only was there a lot of suffering in his age, but he was going to be performing a very dangerous ministry. He was preaching to people who were hostile to the message that he preached. And that's why he suffered very much in his life. He was arrested on numerous occasions. On one occasion, he was even thrown into a miry pit, basically a pit with mud at the bottom. Right? So one of the translations of Jeremiah says that he was in the pit, and literally it was just his neck and head above the mud, right? Basically left there to die. Eventually, he was liberated. But Jeremiah suffered much in his life. So anytime you feel like, your life is rough and, life is tough, you can always open up the book of Jeremiah and maybe you might feel a little bit better about your own circumstances. We heard from chapter 18 today, which the passage we heard from was the people's response to what God told Jeremiah to do. There's a couple of very famous images here in the Bible, right? So you may have heard of the story about God and the potter's hand. That comes from this book of Jeremiah. As Jeremiah was ministering to the people, and as the people were becoming more and more wicked and unfaithful to the covenant, God commanded Jeremiah to go down to the potter's house and to witness the potter and what he was making in his hands. And God told Jeremiah to communicate to the people that just as the potter can take this clay and mold it how he wants it, so likewise is God's people in the hand of God. Another thing that he told Jeremiah to do after this, and this was a little bit more of a devastating message, was that he told Jeremiah then to take the clay pot that was made, take it out to the valley of Hinnom, and to smash it in front of the people. And this prophetic sign was God's way of telling his people that just as he can form the clay to build, he can also smash and tear down. Even though many people living in Israel, they thought that God was just full of empty promises. They thought everything was fine. God was revealing to them that destruction was going to come. So what do we take from this passage of Jeremiah? I mean, a number of things. Obviously, we know that if we are faithful to God and we are truly preaching his word, it's not always going to be well received. But also, I think there's a great spiritual truth for this as well. This image of the clay. God is always trying to form us and re-mold us. And even the times where it feels like we're starting over, where we're immensely humbled, oftentimes those are the times that God can do his greatest work. Humility in this life is one of the greatest gifts that God gives to us. Because when we are humbled, we are forced to truly reconsider. We are forced to put our preconceived ideas and notions aside and begin to see things fresh, see things anew. Sometimes it is the times that we are most humbled, the most challenged, that God is actually doing his greatest work, just as he was doing here in the days of Jeremiah.